Rain tapped gently against the windshield as Larry Bickerpoint steered his pickup through wrought iron gates in cliff on the coast, groaning open on rusted hinges. His wife, Jenny, peered through the passenger window. "It's bigger than the pictures," she murmured. Larry agreed, "It certainly is." In the back seat, their 12-year-old son, Capple, pressed his face against the glass. "It looks haunted." Jenny chuckled. "Every old house looks haunted." Capple's voice, however, held an unsettling conviction. "No, this one looks like it remembers being haunted." A sudden chill filled the truck. Neither parent had a reply. Northgale Estate stood atop a windswept ridge, a magnificent 3-story mansion with a slate roof and stone gargoyles perched along its corners. Massive stained glass windows depicted ravens, roses, and unfamiliar constellations. A wraparound porch stretched nearly its entire length. It looked less like it had been built and more like it had slowly emerged from the cliff itself. Yet, despite its beauty, nearly every real estate listing in Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia knew the property, not for its price, but because no one wanted it. Its classification carried an unusual designation, Relic Estate. Nobody could explain what that meant, but old records simply listed certain properties as belonging to a relic district. Banks financed them reluctantly, insurance companies charged extra, and surveyors avoided discussing their boundaries. Every few years, someone bought one. Most sold it within 12 months. Some simply vanished from public records altogether. Larry, beaming, climbed from the truck. "I got this place for less than half the price of anything comparable." Jenny folded her arms. "That sentence has worried me ever since you said it." Larry grinned. "We finally own our dream home." Jenny glanced toward the towering windows. "I hope our dream doesn't leak." Capple, however, wasn't listening. He'd already wandered toward the enormous detached garage. 3 polished wooden carriage doors faced the driveway. The first opened normally, revealing empty shelves and gardening equipment. The second contained workbenches and pegboards, perfect for Larry. The third was different. Its wood appeared darker, older, almost black. Unlike the others, it had no handle, only an iron ring. Centered above it was a weathered stone carving, a raven holding a key. Capple reached toward the iron ring. Suddenly, a young voice spoke from behind him. "Don't." Capple spun around. 6 teenagers stood near the road, all wearing rain jackets, none carrying umbrellas. The tallest stepped forward. "I'm serious." Capple, confused, said, "I was just looking." "I know," the boy replied, glancing nervously toward the garage. "That's the problem." The group introduced themselves. Maya Torres, 14, was their unofficial leader, sharp-eyed and fearlessly curious. Ethan Brooks, an aspiring engineer, always carried notebooks, measuring tools, flashlights, and at least 3 inventions that almost worked. Naomi Chen was calm, analytical, and a photographer who documented everything in Cliff, believing every mystery eventually left evidence. Isaiah Walker smiled easily, possessing an uncanny memory. Soren Eriksson, whose family were the island's earliest lighthouse keepers, was quiet, observant, and deeply knowledgeable about Cliff's folklore, knowing when legends concealed truth. Finally, Priya Patel was endlessly optimistic and gifted at reading people, sensing emotions, and asking exactly the right questions. Together, they called themselves the Kids' Corner. The name began years earlier when their parents worked different shifts in the Cliff BTC cafeteria, and the children gathered in one corner. Eventually, the name stuck. Over the years, they'd solved missing pet cases, strange lighthouse signals, disappearing fishing boats, and odd sounds beneath the library. None intended to be detectives. Cliff simply refused to stop producing mysteries. Maya looked at Capple. "You just moved here?" He nodded. "My parents bought this place." The 6 exchanged worried glances. "You bought." Soren swallowed. "Northgale?" Capple smiled proudly. "Pretty cool, huh?" No one answered. Instead, Ethan quietly asked, "Did your parents read the disclosures?" "What disclosures?" Capple asked. "The relic ones." He shrugged. "I don't think so." Naomi looked toward the 3rd garage stall. It's still sealed. So, she hesitated. That's good. Why? No answer came. Larry's voice called from the porch. Capple, come help unload. I'll be right there. Before leaving, Capple looked back. So, what's wrong with the garage? Maya forced a smile. Nothing. Isaiah immediately looked at her. She corrected herself. Nothing that should happen during the daytime. Capple laughed. You guys are trying to scare the new kid. No, Soren finally spoke. We're trying to keep you alive. That evening, rain hammered the windows. Moving boxes covered nearly every room. Larry assembled furniture. Jenny unpacked dishes. Capple wandered upstairs. The old house creaked constantly, not loudly, but quietly, like someone shifting their weight in another room. He eventually found a narrow circular staircase leading into the attic. Dust coated everything. Old trunks, portraits, broken furniture. Against the far wall sat a small cedar chest. Unlike everything else, it wasn't dusty. Capple knelt, lifting the lid. Inside rested only one object, a leather-bound journal. Its cover bore the same raven holding a key that appeared above the third garage stall. The first page contained a handwritten sentence. No author, no date. Just 6 words, never open the third stall alone. Capple frowned. The next page had been torn out, and several others as well. Near the center, he found another surviving entry. The cemetery is not beneath the estate. The estate was built above the cemetery. He frowned harder. What cemetery? Another page. The dead remain where they belong. The forgotten do not. Wind slammed somewhere downstairs. The entire house shuddered. The attic door slowly creaked shut behind him. Outside, fog rolled across the estate far earlier than usual. Maya stood with the rest of the kids' corner near the edge of the woods. She watched the mansion disappear into the gray mist. Priya quietly asked, You think they know? No. You going to tell them? Maya shook her head. Not yet. Isaiah looked uneasy. We're running out of time. Soren stared toward the garage. 3 nights. Everyone looked at him. What? The Raven Moon. Silence settled over the group. Naomi quietly whispered, If the third stall opens during Raven Moon, it won't close by itself. Ethan finished. Lightning flashed over the ocean. For the briefest instant, the black door of the third garage stall appeared to stand slightly open, only an inch. When darkness returned, it was closed again, or at least they hoped it was. Morning arrived reluctantly in Cliff on the coast. The sun technically rose, but no one saw it. A blanket of silver-gray fog drifted over the island, swallowing rooftops, church steeples, fishing docks, and even the tops of ancient cedar trees. Rain tapped softly against the stained glass windows of Northgale Estate, like patient fingertips asking to be let inside. Jenny Bickerpoint stood in the kitchen, staring out toward the detached garage while coffee brewed. I've lived here less than 24 hours, she muttered, and somehow this place already feels older today than it did yesterday. Larry chuckled as he unpacked plates. That's just the weather. You've said that 4 times, and it's probably true all 4 times. Jenny wasn't convinced. The garage seemed different. The third stall wasn't visible through the fog, yet somehow she could feel exactly where it stood. Watching, waiting. She laughed at herself. It's just a garage. Yet she found herself closing the kitchen curtains. Upstairs, Capple sat cross-legged on his bed, reading the journal he had discovered in the attic. Several pages had been ripped away decades ago. Others had faded almost beyond recognition. Most entries were written in hurried handwriting, as if the author expected interruption. One page read, Every Relic Estate possesses a threshold. Another, Every threshold protects something. Several pages later, Northgale does not protect something, it imprisons something. Capple frowned. None of it made sense. He flipped another page, blank. Another, blank. Another. Words slowly appeared, not because they had been hidden, but because ink was spreading across the page before his eyes, letter by letter, as though someone invisible was writing. Capple's heartbeat quickened. The message completed itself. Do not trust the caretaker. The ink immediately faded. The page became blank once more. Capple slammed the journal shut. Nope. Across town, Cliff High School buzzed with the usual first-week excitement. Freshmen wandered hallways, teachers handed out schedules, lockers slammed. Rain drummed steadily against the windows. Near the cafeteria sat a corner with mismatched tables, old couches, and walls covered with photographs from school clubs. A faded wooden sign hung overhead, Kids' Corner. The name had started as a joke, but it had become tradition. Nearly every afternoon, children of Cliff BTC employees gathered there while waiting for parents to finish shifts. Over the years, the corner had transformed into the headquarters for something much larger. Mysteries, disappearances, odd sightings. If something strange happened in Cliff, eventually it reached Kids' Corner. The 6 friends gathered before first period. Maya spread a yellowed island map across the table. He's already finding things. Naomi nodded. If he found the journal, he'll find the garage. Isaiah sighed. Or the garage will find him. Priya leaned closer. Shouldn't we tell his parents? No. Everyone looked toward Soren. He rarely interrupted. When adults learn about the Relic Estates, they leave. Ethan finished. And they don't get to leave. Silence. Priya frowned. What do you mean? Soren answered quietly. The estates don't like unfinished business. Capple entered the cafeteria carrying his tray. He immediately spotted the 6. Maya waved him over. You survived your first night? Barely. You found something. Capple froze. How did you know? You've got attic dust on your shoes. Naomi smiled. And you've been holding that backpack like there's something valuable inside. Capple slowly unzipped it. The journal emerged. All 6 immediately stopped smiling. Soren whispered one word. No. You know what this is? Isaiah answered. We've been looking for that for almost 6 years. Capple placed the journal on the table. What's a relic estate? No one answered immediately. Instead, Maya folded the island map open. There are 12. She pointed toward different locations. Northgale Estate, Blackbriar Manor, Hearthstone Hall, the Widow's Reach, Ashwick House, Ravenmere, Hollow Watch, Grey Lantern, Cairn Hall, Fox Hollow, the Keeper's Lodge, and the Anchor Estate. Capple counted. 12. Maya nodded. They're older than Cliff. How old? No one knows. They're just old houses. Ethan laughed nervously. No, they're anchors. For what? Soren answered. Nobody agrees. Isaiah opened another notebook. Some historians say the island used to belong to a civilization that disappeared before Europeans arrived. Naomi continued. Others think monks built underground sanctuaries. Priya added, my grandmother believes every relic estate marks a place where reality became thin. Capple blinked. Thin, the space between worlds. Capple laughed. You guys actually believe this? No one laughed with him. Maya pointed toward the 3rd garage illustrated on the map. Every estate has something unique, a hidden room, a forgotten staircase, a sealed chapel, a lighthouse, a bell tower. But Northgale, she stopped. Capple finished. Has a garage. No, it has a doorway. The lunch bell rang. Students began leaving. None of the 7 moved. Capple quietly asked, so what's behind it? Nobody answered. Finally, Ethan spoke. We've never opened it. Why not? We're smarter than that. School ended beneath another curtain of rain. The 7 walked toward Cliff BTC, where nearly every parent on the island eventually passed through. The enormous building overlooked the harbor. It wasn't merely an employer, it was the heartbeat of Cliff. Its cafeteria occupied nearly an entire wing. Employees greeted Kids' Corner by name. To them, these were simply good kids, helpful kids, curious kids. No one realized they had quietly become the island's unofficial investigators. Capple watched everyone wave. You guys are kind of famous. Maya smiled. Only because we ask questions adults stopped asking. An elderly cafeteria worker approached, carrying a tray of cinnamon rolls. Everyone called her Miss Eleanor. She had worked for Cliff BTC longer than anyone could remember. Some joked she had interviewed the founder. She set the tray down. Who's the new boy? Capple introduced himself. She smiled warmly. Bickerpoint. The smile disappeared almost instantly. You bought Northgale. Yes, ma'am. Her hands trembled, only slightly. How long have you been there? Since yesterday. She looked toward Maya, then Soren, then the others. She lowered her voice. Has he? No. Maya interrupted quickly. Not yet. Miss Eleanor closed her eyes. Thank heaven. Capple frowned. What? She forced another smile. Oh, it's an old house. Needs lots of repairs. She hurried away, too quickly. Capple watched her disappear into the kitchen. She knows something. Naomi nodded. Everyone over 60 does. They just won't talk. That evening, Larry decided to organize the garage. I'll start with stall 1. Jenny unpacked books inside. Capple secretly watched from an upstairs window. Larry cleaned shelves, swept leaves, organized tools. Eventually, he wandered toward the 3rd stall. The iron ring hung motionless. He reached for it. The garage lights flickered only once. Larry pulled his hand back. Huh. The lights stabilized. He laughed to himself. Faulty wiring. He grabbed the iron ring again. This time, every light in the garage exploded. Glass rained onto the concrete. Power across the estate went completely dark. Inside the mansion, every clock stopped simultaneously at 8:13 p.m. Jenny looked up. What was that? Larry called from outside. I'm okay. Capple ran downstairs. By the time everyone reached the garage, Larry stood staring at the 3rd stall. The black wooden door remained shut, but something had changed. 3 fresh scratches now stretched across its surface, perfectly parallel, as though something with impossibly long fingers had tried to claw its way out. No one noticed the figure standing beyond the tree line, wrapped in a weather-beaten raincoat, face hidden beneath a wide hat. They watched Northgale Estate through the fog. In one gloved hand rested an old brass lantern, in the other a ring of iron keys. The stranger whispered into the mist, "They've awakened the threshold." A voice answered from somewhere no one could see. Then the keeper must choose. The lantern extinguished itself. The figure vanished into the fog, leaving only a single sentence drifting on the wind. The cemetery remembers its children, and somewhere beneath Northgale Estate, something answered. 3 slow knocks from the other side of the 3rd stall door. By the 3rd morning, Cliff on the coast seemed to have swallowed the Bickerpoints whole. Rain had become background noise. Fog drifted through the streets with such familiarity that people hardly acknowledged it anymore. Fishermen navigated the harbor by memory instead of sight. Shopkeepers opened their doors to customers they often couldn't see until they were standing inside. Even the gulls flew silently, appearing only as pale shadows against the endless gray sky. For the Bickerpoints, however, nothing felt ordinary. The clocks in Northgale Estate still refused to keep the same time. The 3rd garage stall still bore 3 fresh claw marks, and Larry could not explain why every replacement light bulb he installed shattered within minutes, except those in the 1st and 2nd garage bays. Only the lights nearest the 3rd stall refused to exist. Jenny sat at the dining room table, surrounded by stacks of paperwork left behind by the previous owners. Most of it was routine: insurance records, tax receipts, architectural drawings. Then she found something peculiar: a folded document sealed with dark red wax. Across the front were embossed words unlike anything she had ever seen: Pacific Relic Estate Conservancy. Below it, in elegant script, were the words, "Preserving what must never be forgotten." Jenny frowned. I don't remember seeing this during closing. She carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a single typed letter. To the new steward of Northgale Estate, congratulations on your acquisition. Ownership grants privileges. Ownership also transfers obligations. Certain areas of the estate are not to be altered. The third stall is among them. If the seal has already weakened, contact the keeper immediately. Do not investigate independently. Do not permit children near the threshold. Do not enter after dusk. Do not answer voices calling your name from inside the garage, especially if the voice belongs to someone you love. Jenny's smile faded. The final sentence had been handwritten. Every family believes they will be the exception. Larry, he looked up from the living room. You've got to read this. Larry studied the letter. Then he laughed. What? It's probably one of those local historical society things. Jenny didn't laugh. People don't joke like this. They absolutely do. Larry folded the letter. Probably some eccentric preservation club trying to keep people from remodeling. Jenny looked toward the garage. What if they're serious? Larry smiled reassuringly. If this place came with ghosts, they'd have been listed under disclosures. Jenny wanted to believe him. She truly did. That afternoon, Capple met the kids' corner beneath the covered pavilion overlooking the harbor. Rain bounced rhythmically off the wooden roof. The six were unusually quiet. Maya placed an old leather satchel onto the picnic table. My grandfather left this for me. Inside were maps, letters, photographs, newspaper clippings dating back nearly a century. Across the first page, someone had written, "Keepers of Cliff." Capple leaned closer. "Who's a keeper?" Soren answered. "No one really knows." Isaiah nodded. "It's more of a title than a person. Like sheriff. No, more like." Naomi searched for the right word. Caretaker. Ethan unfolded one of the oldest maps. Unlike modern maps, this one showed 13 relic estates. Capple counted twice. There are 13? No. Maya pointed. There were 13. One estate had been crossed out in black ink. Its name had almost completely faded. Only 2 words remained legible. Hollow. What happened to it? Nobody answered. Finally, Soren spoke. It disappeared. Capple laughed. Buildings don't disappear. Soren looked directly at him. On this island, they do. Naomi produced a faded photograph, black and white, probably taken around the 1920s. It showed 12 enormous estates standing around the island's perimeter. At the center, a cemetery surrounded by ancient stone walls. The relic estates formed almost a perfect circle around it. Capple frowned. "I've never seen that cemetery." "You haven't. It isn't there anymore." "What happened?" Isaiah quietly replied, "Nobody knows." Another photograph, this one from the 1950s, only 11 estates remained visible. The cemetery had vanished beneath dense forest. Someone had circled Northgale Estate in red pencil. Written underneath, "The gate remains secure." Capple looked toward Maya. "So the third garage is built above where the cemetery used to be." Priya corrected him. "Not exactly. What do you mean? The cemetery never moved." Capple blinked. "But," Soren finished, "the rest of the island did." Nobody laughed. The wind suddenly shifted. Every chime hanging from nearby shops began ringing simultaneously, even though there wasn't enough breeze to move them. Naomi slowly lowered her camera. "That's strange." Soren's face turned pale. "No, it's early." "What is?" He pointed toward the ocean. A ferry emerged from the fog. Old, much older than the modern ferry that serviced Cliff. Its paint had long since peeled away. No lights, no wake, no engine noise. It simply drifted. Straight through the harbor. Straight through the dock. Straight through a fishing boat. Without touching it. Capple stared. "What?" None of the 6 seemed surprised, only worried. "The Ferry of Names," whispered Soren. "It shouldn't be here until autumn." By the time Capple looked again, it was gone, as though it had never existed. That evening, Larry decided to inspect the third garage stall more carefully. "This has gone far enough." Jenny grabbed his arm. "Please don't. It's a door. It's a very strange door. It's still a door." He carried a heavy pry bar. The iron ring felt colder than the surrounding air. He wedged the bar beneath the frame, pulled. Nothing. Pulled harder. The wood didn't move. Neither did the hinges. It was as though the entire door had been carved from the cliff itself. Larry stepped back. Impossible. Then he noticed something. The claw marks. Yesterday there had been 3. Now there were 4. Jenny counted twice. There were only 3. I know. Neither of them wanted to ask the obvious question, who or what had made the 4th? Later that night, Capple couldn't sleep. Rain tapped gently against his bedroom window. Then tap, tap, tap. Not rain, someone was throwing tiny pebbles. He opened the curtains. Maya stood below with a flashlight. She motioned urgently. Capple quietly climbed downstairs and slipped outside. The rest of Kids' Corner waited near the old stone well. We found something. What? Maya held up a tarnished brass key. It was enormous, nearly the length of her forearm. The bow of the key was shaped like a raven in flight. Its shaft was covered in tiny symbols. Ethan swallowed. It wasn't buried, it was lying on top of the ground. Where? Soren answered, in front of the 3rd garage stall. Capple stared. I've never seen it before. We believe you. Naomi looked nervous. Because. She held up a photograph taken only yesterday. The driveway was empty, no key, none. It wasn't there. Capple reached toward it. The moment his fingers brushed the brass, his vision disappeared. He stood somewhere else. Fog, stone, hundreds. No, thousands of weathered grave markers stretched endlessly in every direction. Moonlight shone despite there being no moon. Towering black trees surrounded everything. At the center stood Northgale Estate, except it wasn't old, it was brand new. Its windows glowing warmly. Children laughed inside. Someone was having a birthday party. Then every light in the mansion went dark, one by one, room by room, until only the 3rd garage remained illuminated. Its doors slowly opened. From inside emerged a tall figure dressed in Victorian black. Its face was hidden beneath a cracked porcelain funeral mask. In one hand, it carried a lantern. In the other, a ring of 13 enormous brass keys. The figure slowly turned toward Capple. Although the mask had no moving mouth, it spoke. You have returned. Capple stumbled backward. I've never been here. The keeper tilted its head. No, it said quietly. You simply do not remember. The world shattered like broken glass. Capple awoke lying on the wet grass. The 6 members of Kids' Corner surrounded him. You were only unconscious for 20 seconds, Priya said. But Capple sat upright, breathing hard. I know who the keeper is. Everyone leaned closer. No, he whispered. I know, the keeper knows me. Far across the estate, hidden behind the black door of the 3rd garage stall, something heavy scraped slowly across stone, as though a lock, centuries old, had just turned for the first time. For the first time since arriving in Cliff on the coast, Capple dreaded going home. The vision haunted him. It wasn't simply what he had seen, it was what the keeper had said. You have returned. Not arrived, not entered, returned. The word echoed through his thoughts like a bell ringing inside an empty cathedral. He had never been to Cliff before. At least he was almost certain he hadn't. The next morning, the rain stopped. That alone unsettled the town. Residents stepped outside cautiously, looking toward the sky instead of enjoying the rare sunshine. Store owners quietly covered mirrors facing the street. The lighthouse sounded 3 mournful blasts at exactly 10 o'clock. An old fisherman immediately abandoned his nets. Children walking to school hurried instead of lingering. Capple noticed it all. What is everyone doing? Maya looked upward. They're getting ready. For what? The still day. What's that? In Cliff, Soren answered quietly, when the rain stops, something else starts. Classes that morning felt strangely disconnected. Teachers stumbled over familiar lessons. The school clocks disagreed with one another. One read 9:48, another 10:03, another had no hands at all. Even Principal Hargrove seemed distracted. Twice he stopped speaking over the morning announcements, as though listening to something only he could hear. By lunch, half the students complained that their cell phones displayed the wrong date. Capple looked at his own, October 31. He frowned. Yesterday, it had read September 9th. He blinked. The screen corrected itself. September 10th. No one else seemed concerned. After school, Kids' Corner met in the oldest building on the island, the Cliff Historical Reading Room. It wasn't technically a library anymore. It was something stranger. Every book inside concerned Cliff. Only Cliff. There were no novels, no encyclopedias, no books about the outside world. Just journals, maps, diaries, property ledgers, and shelves upon shelves labeled simply, accounts. Miss Eleanor waited inside. The elderly cafeteria worker carefully locked the front door behind them. Capple looked surprised. I thought you worked at Cliff BTC. I do. You work here too. She smiled. No, I protect this place. Maya whispered, she's one of them. Capple frowned. One of who? Miss Eleanor sighed. The keepers. She led them downstairs into a room few people knew existed. Dusty lanterns illuminated shelves filled with leather-bound volumes. At the center sat an enormous table carved from black cedar. Upon it rested a single object, a model of cliff on the coast. Every road, every cliff, every dock, every relic estate perfectly recreated. Capple leaned closer. Something immediately caught his attention. Beyond Northgale Estate, there was another town, smaller, older, surrounded by crumbling stone walls. I've never seen this. You haven't. Miss Eleanor looked sadly at the model. Because it doesn't exist. It must. No, it existed. She gently touched the tiny stone village. I want you all to understand something. The relic estates aren't named after relics. They're named after people. The room fell silent. What do you mean? Priya asked. Miss Eleanor drew a slow breath. Long before Cliff became a fishing village, there was another settlement. It stood exactly where Cliff stands today. It was called Relic. The children exchanged glances. It wasn't large, perhaps 300 people, but it flourished. Shipbuilders, glass makers, stone masons, teachers, healers. They believed memories possessed weight, so every building was constructed to preserve memories. Their homes became living records. Their churches remembered prayers. Their bridges remembered footsteps. Their cemetery. She looked toward Capple, remembered every soul buried there. Naomi quietly asked, what happened? Miss Eleanor's expression darkened. No one knows. One winter, the entire village disappeared. Not destroyed, not abandoned, simply gone. She opened one of the ancient ledgers. Inside were dozens of hand-drawn illustrations. The children gathered closer. The first showed the bustling village of Relic. The second depicted dense fog rolling in from the sea. The third, nothing, only empty cliffs, as though the village had never existed. Beneath the final drawing someone had written, when memory has nowhere left to live, it builds a home of its own. Capple stared. So where did everyone go? Miss Eleanor slowly turned another page. There, drawn with remarkable detail, was a second village, identical yet subtly wrong. Its buildings leaned at impossible angles. Its church bell tower bent toward the earth. Its streets twisted where no streets should exist. Its cemetery stretched far beyond the horizon. Across the top, someone had written, "The Relic Cast." The children exchanged confused looks. "The Relic Cast?" Ethan asked. Miss Eleanor nodded. The word cast has many meanings. A fishing cast, a theatrical cast. But in the oldest island dialect, it meant a reflection. She pointed to the illustration. The Relic Cast is not another village. It is Relic, remembering itself. Silence. Even Ethan, who usually found a scientific explanation for everything, had nothing to say. Capple finally broke the silence. So the cemetery still exists. Yes, but not where we can reach it. Maya folded her arms. The third stall. Miss Eleanor nodded. It isn't a portal to another dimension. It isn't a ghost world. It is something much older. It is a passage between memory and history. Capple remembered the keeper. I saw someone wearing a porcelain mask, holding 13 keys. Every color drained from Miss Eleanor's face. You saw the gravekeeper, the keeper of thresholds, the last caretaker of Relic. You know him. No, no one alive does. Then who is he? Miss Eleanor quietly replied, that is the wrong question. Outside, thunder rumbled. The rain returned without warning. It struck the roof so violently that everyone jumped. Miss Eleanor looked relieved. The rain is back. Maya frowned. That's good. It means the cast cannot fully cross over. Capple wasn't listening. He had noticed something inside the ledger, a sketch half hidden beneath another page. He carefully lifted it. The drawing showed 6 teenagers standing before the third stall. Behind them, a 7th child. The face had been scratched away. Above the illustration, someone had written, "The circle must become 7." Capple slowly looked around the room. There were 7 of them, exactly 7. That evening, Larry insisted on finally organizing the third garage. I don't care what local legends say. It's wasted space. Jenny argued until she was exhausted. He wouldn't listen. With a battery-powered drill, pry bar, and heavy flashlight, he walked toward the black door. The iron ring felt warmer than before, almost alive. He inserted the pry bar once more, pulled. This time, the door moved. Only half an inch, but it moved. From inside came a sound, not claws, not footsteps. Children laughing, dozens of them. The laughter echoed through the darkness beyond the door. Larry smiled nervously. Someone's playing tricks. Then one voice rose above all the others. Clear, gentle, impossible. Dad. Larry froze. Jenny's eyes widened. Capple had gone upstairs 10 minutes earlier, yet the voice unmistakably belonged to him. Dad, I'm cold. Larry stepped closer. Jenny screamed. No. He reached toward the opening. The voice spoke again. Dad, please open the door. Then, from inside the house, the real Capple shouted, Dad, Mom, come look at this. Larry turned instinctively toward the mansion. For one brief second, the laughter behind the garage door stopped. Something enormous inhaled, then whispered from the darkness. Next time, the door slammed shut with such force that every window in Northgale Estate rattled. High above the estate, unseen within the swirling storm clouds, 13 ravens circled once, then disappeared into the rain. And somewhere beyond the threshold, in the endless cemetery of the Relic Cast, a boy who looked exactly like Capple slowly opened his eyes. The storm did not end that night. It simply changed. The rain no longer fell straight. It drifted sideways through the wind, wrapping itself around Northgale Estate in long silver ribbons. Every few minutes, lightning illuminated the cliffs, revealing the mansion as nothing more than a lonely silhouette against the Pacific Ocean. None of the Bickerpoint slept. Larry sat silently in the living room, replaying the voice he had heard behind the third garage stall. It had been Capple, every inflection, every pause, every syllable. He had spent his entire life believing there was a logical explanation for everything. Old houses settled, pipes rattled, wind made strange sounds. But this had known his son's voice. Across the room, Jenny watched him. You believe me now? Larry didn't answer. Instead, he quietly asked, what if I had opened it? Jenny looked toward the dark hallway. I don't think we'd still have our son. Capple remained awake in his room. The journal lay open across his desk. Something had changed. Where blank pages had once existed, more writing had appeared, not all at once, but line by line, as though someone were continuing the journal from somewhere else. A fresh entry read, The gate does not tempt strangers, it tempts family. It studies every voice, every laugh, every memory. Eventually, it learns enough to imitate the people you love. Capple slowly turned another page. More words. Never trust anyone who steps through the third stall, until they cast a shadow. His blood ran cold. He looked toward his bedroom wall. His own shadow stretched across it. Then, for just a heartbeat, a second shadow appeared beside his own, taller, wearing a wide-brimmed hat, holding what looked like a lantern. When lightning flashed again, it was gone. The next morning, Cliff on the coast buzzed with quiet rumors. People spoke in lowered voices. Shopkeepers gathered in doorways. Fishermen refused to leave the harbor. The old lighthouse remained lit despite it being daylight. Something had unsettled the town. Kids' Corner met before school. Maya already knew. He heard the voice. Capple nodded. My dad almost opened the door. Soren closed his eyes. It started sooner than I thought. What starts? The calling. Miss Eleanor had warned them about it years ago. According to island legend, every threshold eventually began calling to its steward, first through sounds, then voices, finally memories. The longer someone lived inside a Relic Estate, the harder it became to distinguish real memories from borrowed ones. Some families left, some couldn't, some forgot they had ever wanted to. Isaiah unfolded another map. Only this one wasn't a map. It was a family tree, or at least it appeared to be. Dozens of surnames connected by red lines. Each eventually led to one of the 12 Relic Estates. Capple found his family's name, Bickerpoint. His stomach tightened. It was already there, written in faded ink, dated 1912. That's impossible. My family's from Ohio. Naomi gently shook her head. Maybe that's where they lived, but that doesn't mean that's where they began. Capple stared at the page. Someone named Elias Bickerpoint had once lived at Northgale Estate. Beside his name, someone had written only 3 words. Never came back. What does that mean? No one answered. Miss Eleanor had always told them that some questions should wait until they were ready for the answers. This was one of them. That afternoon, Capple skipped ahead in the journal. Near the back, he found something folded into one of the pages. A brittle photograph. It showed Northgale Estate nearly a century earlier. Standing on the front porch was a family, mother, father, young son. Capple frowned. The boy looked familiar, too familiar. He turned the photograph over. Written in faded fountain pen, the Bickerpoints, autumn 1912. Capple stared at the child's face. It wasn't merely similar, it was identical to his own. Same eyes, same smile, same cowlick in his hair. The photograph slipped from his fingers. No. That evening, Maya convinced the others they needed answers no book could provide. There is one person left. Soren looked uneasy. You mean? She nodded. The bellkeeper. Every island had stories. Cliff had legends, but only one person knew every legend. He lived inside the abandoned bell tower overlooking the northern cliffs. Few visited, fewer returned with answers. The climb took nearly an hour. The tower leaned slightly toward the sea, its ancient stones covered in moss and salt. The great bronze bell overhead had not rung in decades, or so people believed. The wooden door stood open. Inside sat an old man wrapped in wool blankets beside a coal stove. His beard reached nearly his waist. His eyes were startlingly bright. He smiled before anyone spoke. I wondered when Northgale would send children again. Capple stepped forward. You know who we are. The old man laughed softly. My boy, I knew who you were before you did. His name was Alistair Rowan, though no one on the island could remember exactly how old he was. Some claimed 90, others claimed 120. Miss Eleanor simply called him the listener because he claimed the bell spoke. Alistair studied Capple for a long moment. You've seen the keeper. Yes. You've touched one of the raven keys. Yes. You've walked the cemetery. only in a vision. Alistair sighed. No, you truly walked it. The room fell silent. Capple frowned. I never left. You did, not with your body, with something older. Alistair slowly rose and walked toward the bell rope. He placed one weathered hand upon it. You've all been asking the wrong question. Maya crossed her arms. Then what's the right one? You keep asking. What is the Relic Cast? He looked toward the ocean. You should be asking, why does it exist? Without waiting for an answer, he continued. Imagine every memory every person has ever carried. Every birthday, every promise, every goodbye, every regret. What if they refused to disappear? Naomi quietly whispered, they'd need somewhere to go. Alistair smiled. Exactly. The Relic Cast is not a prison. It is an archive, a place where forgotten lives continue remembering themselves. Capple frowned. So why can't they leave? Alistair's smile vanished. They can. Everyone stared. They choose not to. Lightning flashed outside. For the briefest instant, everyone saw dozens of shadowy figures standing beyond the tower windows, watching. When darkness returned, they were gone. Alistair lowered his voice, but something else lives there now, something that learned memory without ever having a life of its own. No one breathed. It cannot create, it cannot dream, it cannot love, so it steals. Names, faces, voices, families. Capple felt his stomach drop. The thing behind the garage. Alistair nodded once. It is not the keeper. It fears the keeper. Maya frowned. Then what is it? The old man's expression hardened. For the first time, genuine fear crossed his face. It has many names. The oldest has not been spoken aloud for over 300 years. He looked at each of the 7 children. I will not be the one to speak it again. As the children prepared to leave, Alistair stopped Capple. There is one more thing. He reached into a cedar box and removed a tarnished silver pocket watch. Its face had no numbers, only 13 ravens arranged in a circle. This belonged to Elias Bickerpoint. Capple stared. My ancestor? Alistair nodded. He never returned. Then how did you get this? The old man looked toward the sea. Because he made sure something did. Capple accepted the watch. The moment it touched his hand, it began ticking, for the first time in over a century. Tick, tick, tick. Then the watch stopped. Its hands pointed to exactly one position, 3:33. Alistair's face turned pale. No. What? The old man whispered, the gate doesn't open tonight. He looked directly into Capple's eyes. It opens now. Miles away, at Northgale Estate, the black door of the 3rd garage stall slowly swung inward on its own. No one touched it. No wind blew. From the darkness beyond emerged a narrow stone path lined with weathered grave markers disappearing into an endless silver mist. And somewhere, deep within the Relic Cast, a boy who looked exactly like Capple smiled, because someone had finally opened the way. The moment the pocket watch stopped at 3:33, every clock and cliff on the coast stopped with it. The clock in the school hallway, the clock inside the Cliff BTC cafeteria, the weather station atop the harbor, the grandfather clock in the mayor's office, the lighthouse mechanism, which had never failed in over a century. Even wristwatches froze. Only one sound continued, the steady crashing of the Pacific against the cliffs. It was as though time itself had paused to watch what happened next. At Northgale Estate, Jenny Bickerpoint was preparing dinner when every light in the house dimmed. Not off, just dim, like candlelight struggling against a breeze. She looked toward the garage through the kitchen window. The 3rd stall stood open, wide open. Beyond it, there was no garage, no concrete floor, no shelves, no workbench, only a narrow cobblestone path disappearing into silver fog. On either side stood weathered gravestones stretching farther than she could comprehend. It was impossible. The garage was detached. Behind it should have been the cliff. Instead, there was an entire world. Jenny whispered, "Larry." Larry walked into the kitchen carrying a toolbox. He followed her gaze. His face lost all color. For nearly a minute, neither of them spoke. Finally, Larry said the one sentence that no rational person ever wishes to say. "I don't know what I'm looking at." Across town, the 7 members of Kids Corner sprinted through rain-soaked streets. The pocket watch had begun ticking again, not steadily, rapidly. Each tick echoed unnaturally loud. Tick, 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 as though counting down rather than keeping time. Alistair Rowan struggled to keep pace despite his age. Don't let anyone cross alone. Maya glanced back. Why? Because the threshold counts souls. What does that mean? If 7 enter, 7 must leave. Capple stopped running. What if only 6 come back? Alistair didn't answer. He didn't need to. The group reached Northgale Estate just as Larry stepped cautiously toward the open stall. "Dad!" Capple shouted. Larry spun around. "What are all of you doing here? No time." Maya called. "Step away from the door." Larry hesitated. "There's a cemetery inside my garage." "We know." "You knew?" "We'll explain later." The path beyond the threshold shimmered strangely. The fog wasn't drifting. It was breathing, rolling inward, then outward, like the slow lungs of something impossibly large. Rows of gravestones leaned at odd angles. Some bore names. Others were blank. A few displayed only dates. One marker read, "Remembered." Another, "Forgotten." Another simply said, "Waiting." Then Capple noticed something that made his heart pound. Fresh footprints, small, barefoot, leading away from the garage, into the cemetery. Only one set, a child's. Jenny whispered, "Someone's in there." "No." Soren quietly corrected, "Someone came out." The group examined the tracks. They began inside the fog, continued toward the garage, stopped, exactly 1 foot short of crossing into the real world. There were no returning footprints, only arriving ones. Isaiah slowly backed away. Something stood here. Naomi raised her camera. She snapped a photograph. The flash illuminated the path. When the image developed on the camera screen, everyone stared. The path was empty, but reflected in every polished gravestone stood dozens of children watching them. No one in the real cemetery moved, yet in the reflections, one little girl slowly raised her hand, then pointed deeper into the mist. The pocket watch ticked faster. Alistair stepped forward. "The cast is trying to show us something." Maya looked toward Capple. "You don't have to go." Capple shook his head. "If this has something to do with my family, I have to." Jenny grabbed his shoulder. "Absolutely not." Larry agreed. "You're 12. 14, Capple corrected. "Still no." Capple looked toward the endless path. "If someone doesn't go, someone else will." Silence settled over everyone. Finally, Larry surprised himself. He took a deep breath. "I'm going." "No." Every voice spoke at once. Alistair stepped between Larry and the doorway. The threshold doesn't choose by courage. It chooses by memory. Larry frowned. What does that mean? It already chose. He looked at Capple. It has always been waiting for him. Capple slowly stepped toward the opening. The fog curled around his shoes without crossing into the garage, almost welcoming him. Maya stepped beside him. "If you go, I'm going." Ethan sighed. "So am I." One by one, the others joined. Naomi, Isaiah, Priya, Soren. The circle had become 7, exactly as the old drawing foretold. Alistair closed his eyes. So it begins. The 7 crossed together. The instant the last foot left the garage floor, everything changed. The temperature dropped. The rain disappeared. Sound vanished. Even breathing seemed quieter. Behind them, the garage door still stood open, yet Northgale Estate appeared impossibly distant, as though viewed through thick water. Jenny reached toward Capple. Her hand struck an invisible barrier. She couldn't pass. "Mom?" I can't reach you." Larry slammed his fists against the unseen wall. "Come back." Capple tried. He couldn't. The path behind him had stretched. The doorway now appeared hundreds of feet away, though he had taken only 3 steps. Then a church bell rang, one solemn note, somewhere deep within the fog. Another answered, then another, until 13 unseen bells echoed across the endless cemetery. The mist slowly withdrew, revealing an entire town. The Relic Cast. It looked exactly like the illustration in Miss Eleanor's ledger. Stone cottages, gas lamps, crooked streets, a church whose steeple leaned ever so slightly toward the sea, flower boxes filled with roses that had turned gray. Every building appeared inhabited, yet no smoke rose from chimneys, no doors opened, no voices carried through the streets. The entire village felt paused. Then they saw them, people, hundreds of them, standing silently. Every resident faced the newcomers. None moved, none blinked. They simply watched, not with hostility, with curiosity, as though greeting visitors they had expected for a very long time. An elderly woman smiled gently. A fisherman removed his cap. Children paused their game of marbles. A blacksmith stood frozen beside an anvil. It looked almost peaceful, until Capple noticed something. No one's feet touched the ground. Each person hovered perhaps half an inch above the cobblestones, as though memories no longer required gravity. A young boy stepped forward from the crowd. He wore suspenders. His hair matched Capple's perfectly. Even the small scar above his left eyebrow was identical. The boy smiled warmly. "You finally came." Capple swallowed. "Who are you?" The boy tilted his head. "I'm Capple." Silence. The 6 friends instinctively moved closer to him. Maya whispered, "No." The boy's smile widened. "I've been waiting a very long time." Before anyone could speak again, the crowd slowly parted. Walking between them came the tall figure in the cracked porcelain mask, the keeper, lantern glowing softly, 13 ancient keys hanging from an iron ring. Every villager bowed their head as the keeper passed. The masked figure stopped before the children. For several long moments, nothing happened. Then the keeper removed one white glove, extended an open hand toward Capple, and spoke in a voice older than the island itself. "You have entered the Relic Cast. You are welcome." Then, after a long pause, the keeper turned its masked face toward the boy who claimed to be Capple. Its voice became cold, cold enough to silence the entire village. "You were never invited." The smiling boy's expression did not change, but all around the village, every church bell rang at once, and for the first time since the children had entered the Relic Cast, the keeper reached for one of the 13 keys, not to unlock a door, to prepare for war. No one spoke. No one even breathed. The 13 church bells continued their slow, mournful toll, each peal rolling across the Relic Cast like distant thunder. The villagers remained perfectly still, their eyes fixed on the keeper and the smiling boy who claimed to be Capple. The air itself felt different, heavier, as though the village remembered every battle it had ever witnessed. The keeper's gloved hand rested upon the ring of ancient keys. There were 13, no 2 were alike. One was carved from black iron, another from polished silver. One appeared to be made from driftwood that had somehow become harder than steel. One shimmered like moonlight trapped inside glass. Each key carried a different symbol: a raven, a lighthouse, a bell, an oak leaf, a ship, a lantern, a crown, a rose, a wave, a cedar tree, a compass, a hand. And finally, the 13th. It bore no symbol at all, only a perfectly smooth circle. The keeper did not reach for that one, not yet. The smiling boy stepped forward. "You've become bold." His voice sounded exactly like Capple's. Every inflection, every pause, even the slight rasp that appeared when Capple became nervous. Jenny would never have known the difference. Larry wouldn't either. The imitation was perfect, Except Priya noticed something. She always noticed people before she noticed words. She leaned toward Maya. He smiles with only his mouth. Maya understood immediately. His eyes remained empty. The keeper spoke. "You have taken another face." The boy shrugged. "They're easier to wear than the old ones. You have broken the covenant." "There was never a covenant." "There was. You broke it first." The village collectively inhaled. The keeper had not moved, yet the lantern's flame suddenly burned blue. Capple looked around. "What is he talking about?" An elderly woman standing nearby quietly answered, "The first winter." He turned toward her. She introduced herself with a small bow. "My name is Eliza Ashcroft. I was the school teacher before." "Before what?" She looked toward the crooked church. "Before memory became all we had." Eliza motioned for the children to follow. The keeper did not object. Neither did the smiling boy. Both simply watched. Eliza led them through the silent streets. Everything looked astonishingly preserved. Fresh bread sat inside a bakery window. Steam lingered above a teacup on a porch. Laundry swayed gently, despite the absence of wind. A newspaper rested upon a bench. Its date, October 18th, 1694. Capple picked it up. The pages crumbled into silver dust. The dust drifted upward instead of falling. Eliza smiled sadly. "Nothing here grows older, because nothing here is alive." She gently shook her head. "No, because nothing here is allowed to finish." They stopped before the village church. Unlike every other building, its front doors stood open. Inside, thousands of candles burned, yet none melted. The wax remained perfectly still. Rows of wooden pews stretched toward an enormous stained glass window. Instead of saints, it depicted 13 estates surrounding a single tree. Its roots extended beneath every building. The branches reached toward every star. At the center of the trunk was carved a single word: remember. Eliza stood before the window. The Relic Cast wasn't built, it was kept. Capple frowned. "I don't understand. The people of Relic discovered something." "What?" She looked directly into his eyes. "That memories can die." The children exchanged uncertain glances. Isaiah quietly whispered, "I thought memories just faded." "They do, and when the last person forgets." Eliza placed one hand against the stained glass. "Where do they go?" Silence. No one had ever considered the question. She continued, "Our ancestors believed forgetting wasn't natural. They believed every promise, every act of kindness, every sacrifice deserved to exist somewhere. So they built places that remembered. The lighthouse remembered every ship. The church remembered every prayer. The school remembered every lesson. The cemetery remembered every name." Naomi slowly understood. The Relic Estates were built to protect those memories. Eliza smiled. "Exactly. But memories are powerful things. They attract creatures." "What kind of creatures?" "The hungry kind." A deep rumble echoed beneath the church floor. Not an earthquake. Something moving, far below. Very slowly. Soren whispered, "The cemetery." Eliza nodded. "No, the roots." She pointed toward the stained glass tree. "Everything beneath cliff is connected." Meanwhile, outside the church, the smiling boy wandered alone through the empty square. Villagers stepped aside without speaking. They never looked directly at him. He reached a stone fountain. Its water reflected no sky, only darkness. He looked into it. His reflection changed. The face of Capple melted away like wax. For only a heartbeat, something else stared back. Its skin appeared cracked like dried riverbeds. Its eyes contained no pupils, only endless black. Its smile stretched impossibly wide. Then the reflection became Capple again. A soft voice came from behind him. "You never were very good at wearing faces." The smiling boy turned. Standing beneath a cedar tree was a girl about 16 years old. She carried a lantern made of green glass. Unlike everyone else in the village, she cast a shadow. She smiled gently. "My name is Evelyn Rowan." Capple's double narrowed his eyes. "I remember you. I know you escaped. I was released. There is no difference. There is." Without warning, the smiling boy's voice changed. It became dozens of voices layered together. Children, old men, women, soldiers, sailors. Every voice he had ever stolen. "I will remember you again." Evelyn lifted her lantern. Its green flame flared brightly. The creature hissed, actually hissed, before disappearing into the fog, not running, simply becoming mist. Back inside the church, the keeper entered without sound. Every child instinctively stood. The keeper looked toward Eliza, then toward Capple. Finally, it slowly removed its porcelain mask. The children gasped. There was no face beneath it, not empty, not skeletal. Instead, a shifting mosaic of countless faces, young, old, every ethnicity, every century. They flowed gently across the keeper's features like reflections moving across water. One face lingered longer than the others. It belonged to Elias Bickerpoint. He smiled sadly at Capple, then dissolved into another. The keeper spoke. "I am not one person. I am every keeper who has ever carried the keys. When one remembers no longer, another remembers in their place." Capple whispered, "So you're the office, not the man." The keeper inclined its head. A keeper does not rule. A keeper remembers. The lantern's blue flame flickered. The keeper turned sharply toward the church doors. "The Hollow One has crossed another boundary." Maya frowned. "The Hollow One?" The keeper replaced its mask. "The name your world forgot. The thing your stories turned into monsters. The thing that existed before monsters had names." Every candle inside the church extinguished simultaneously. Darkness swallowed the room. Only 3 lights remained: the keeper's blue lantern, Evelyn's green lantern, and the silver pocket watch in Capple's pocket. It had begun glowing. The watch slowly opened on its own. Inside the cover, words appeared that had not been there before. "The 13th key does not open doors. It closes them forever." The keeper looked at the children. "There are 12 thresholds. There have always been 12. The 13th key belongs to no threshold." "What does it unlock?" Ethan asked. The keeper answered with quiet sorrow. "It unlocks goodbye." Silence settled over the church. Then Capple asked the question that no one else dared to ask. "If we have to use the 13th key, what happens?" The keeper looked directly at him. For the first time, the voices within its mask sounded almost human, almost weary. "It will seal the Relic Cast, the Hollow One, the threshold, the cemetery, the keepers, everything, forever." Capple's heart sank. "What about the people here?" The keeper did not answer immediately. When it finally did, the words landed like stones. "They will finally be allowed to be remembered no more." At that very instant, somewhere back in the real world, inside Northgale Estate, Jenny Bickerpoint screamed. Larry rushed into the upstairs hallway. Capple's bedroom door stood wide open. The window was closed. The room was empty. But written across the fogged glass from the inside in the unmistakable handwriting of his son were 6 chilling words. "I never left the garage." Jenny stared at the words on Capple's bedroom window until the fog on the glass slowly faded. Then the writing disappeared, not smeared, not erased, simply forgotten by the glass itself. Larry rubbed the pane with his sleeve. Nothing, only cold rain beyond the window. "I saw it," Jenny whispered. "So did I. It was his handwriting." Larry swallowed. "No." His voice trembled. It wanted us to think it was. For the first time in his life, Larry Bickerpoint accepted a truth that could not be measured, repaired, or reasoned away. There were things in Northgale Estate that wanted to be believed. Back within the Relic Cast, the children followed the keeper through narrow stone streets. The village had awakened, not with noise, with memory. Lanterns lit themselves as they passed. Curtains shifted, although there was no wind. Music drifted from empty homes. A violin, a lullaby, laughter from birthday parties that had ended 3 centuries ago. The village wasn't haunted, it was remembering. Every joyful moment that had ever happened within its walls continued to exist. Capple smiled sadly. "It's beautiful." The keeper answered without turning. It was. They reached the center of the village. There stood the oldest structure in Relic. Not the church, not the cemetery, a tree. It dwarfed every building around it. Its trunk was wider than a lighthouse. Its bark shimmered silver beneath the moonless sky. Its branches disappeared into mist. Every leaf glowed softly. Thousands of them. Millions, perhaps. The children stopped in awe. Evelyn Rowan stepped beside Capple. "We call it the remembering tree." Isaiah looked upward. "What kind of tree is it?" Evelyn smiled. "No one knows. It existed before anyone began asking." As they approached, Capple noticed something extraordinary. Each leaf was different. Inside every leaf, a tiny moving memory. A fisherman teaching his daughter to tie knots. A mother kissing her newborn. 2 friends laughing beneath autumn leaves. A wedding. A farewell. A child learning to ride a bicycle. Every leaf held a single memory, not just from Relic, from everywhere. Every generation. Every life. Naomi quietly cried, "They're beautiful." The keeper nodded. "Every memory that is cherished finds its way here." Ethan frowned. "So what does the Hollow One want?" The keeper's lantern dimmed. "It cannot remember. It has never lived. It has never loved. It has never lost. So it cannot create memories. It can only consume them." Capple looked toward the glowing leaves. "It eats memories." "No." The keeper stopped walking. "It eats the people attached to them." Silence. Priya whispered, "That's impossible." The keeper slowly looked toward her. "How many names have been forgotten throughout history?" No one answered. "How many faces disappeared because no one remained alive to remember them? How many acts of courage vanished? How many families became stories and then became nothing?" The realization spread through the children. The Hollow One did not simply erase memories, it erased the people from whom those memories came, until they had never mattered at all. Suddenly, a single glowing leaf detached from the tree. It floated gently downward, landing in Capple's hands. Inside the leaf, he watched a memory unfold. A little boy, perhaps 6 years old, running across the lawn of Northgale Estate. His father chased him, laughing. His mother waved from the porch. The boy stopped, looked directly toward Capple. It was Elias Bickerpoint, not as an adult, as a child. The memory shifted. The family entered the detached garage. The 3rd stall stood open. Unlike today, it looked ordinary. Inside waited another family, smiling, friendly. They invited the Bickerpoints inside. Elias hesitated. His father stepped through first, then his mother. Finally, Elias. The garage door closed. The memory ended. Capple looked toward the keeper. They tricked them. The keeper nodded. The Hollow One has always worn kindness first. A low growl echoed across the village, not from an animal, from beneath the ground. Every glowing leaf upon the remembering tree flickered. Then several went dark, one by one. Villagers stopped what they were doing. They all looked toward the cemetery. The keeper whispered one word. "It feeds." Miles away, in the real world, Miss Eleanor stood inside the Cliff Historical Reading Room. She was not alone. Alistair Rowan entered, carrying the ancient bell rope he had cut from the tower. "The bells have fallen silent." Miss Eleanor nodded. "So have the records." She opened one of the oldest ledgers. Entire pages had become blank. Names vanished before their eyes. Families erased from history. Photographs slowly lost people standing within them. Letters addressed themselves to no one. Alistair whispered, "It's feeding faster than ever." Back in the Relic Cast, the children heard footsteps behind them. Not hurried, Measured, confident, they turned. The smiling boy approached once more, still wearing Capple's face, still smiling. Only now others walked beside him, 5 children. Each wore someone else's face, a little girl whose eyes changed color every few seconds, an old sailor with a teenager's voice, a woman who became a little boy each time someone blinked. None cast shadows. Evelyn quietly stepped forward, the taken. The smiling boy spread his arms. You've met my family. The hollow one no longer bothered hiding beneath a single voice. Its words echoed with dozens layered together. Every face you forget becomes mine. Capple stared. What are you? The creature smiled wider. I was born the day the first person was forgotten. The keeper slowly removed one ancient key from the ring, the key of the lantern. Its brass surface began glowing. You lie. The hollow one laughed. No, I simply remember differently. Without warning, every taken child rushed forward, not running, gliding silently over the cobblestones. The keeper thrust the glowing key into the air. Blue fire exploded outward. A circle of brilliant light surrounded the 7 children. The taken struck the barrier. The sound was unlike anything they had ever heard. Not screams, not growls. It sounded like thousands of forgotten names being whispered all at once. The hollow one did not attack. It watched, patiently, almost amused. You cannot protect them forever. The keeper remained silent. The hollow one looked directly at Capple. I don't need all of you. I only need one. The barrier flickered. Blue flames weakened. The keeper's lantern dimmed. Evelyn's green lantern suddenly flared brighter. She looked at the keeper. It's happening again. The keeper nodded. The balance is failing. Capple looked confused. What balance? The keeper pointed toward the remembering tree. Its silver leaves continued darkening. Not many, but enough to notice. The Relic Cast exists because memory and forgetting remain balanced. To remember everything is as dangerous as forgetting everything. Isaiah frowned. Then why doesn't the hollow one just destroy the tree? The keeper looked toward the creature. It has tried. It cannot. Why? Because the tree remembers its true name. For the first time, the hollow one's smile faltered, only for a second, but Capple saw it. The creature feared something. Not the keeper, not the keys, not the lanterns, its own forgotten name. Capple suddenly remembered the journal, one line that had made no sense when he first read it. Every prison has 2 locks. He looked toward the keeper. The hollow one isn't trapped because of the cemetery. No, it's trapped because someone made it forget who it is. The keeper slowly turned. For the first time since they had met, the ancient guardian smiled. You are beginning to remember. Before Capple could ask what that meant, the ground beneath the remembering tree cracked open with a deafening roar. The roots split apart. Silver light poured from the earth, and rising slowly from the opening, wrapped in chains forged from black iron and living ivy, was a colossal stone doorway, far larger than any building in the village. Across its arch, carved in letters older than any language still spoken, were words that every one of the 7 children somehow understood without reading. Here rests the first memory ever forgotten. The hollow one's smile vanished completely. For the very first time, it looked afraid. The colossal stone doorway continued to rise from beneath the roots of the remembering tree. Its chains groaned like glaciers shifting across mountains. Black iron links, each thicker than a man's body, stretched upward from the earth, wrapped in twisting vines whose leaves shimmered with silver light. The entire Relic Cast trembled, not from fear, from recognition. Every villager stopped where they stood. The baker removed his cap. The blacksmith knelt. Children who had never grown older clasped one another's hands. Even the wind ceased. The village had witnessed this before, centuries before, and it prayed it would never witness it again. The hollow one took an involuntary step backward. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but the keeper saw it. So, the keeper's voice echoed through the square. You still remember fear. The Hollow One recovered its smile. Fear? I simply admire old architecture. The keeper remained motionless. No, you remember what waits behind that door. Capple stared at the immense archway. The inscription had faded, yet he could still feel the meaning of the words, not hear them, feel them, as though the stone itself carried emotion. He looked toward Evelyn. What is the first memory? She hesitated, then quietly answered, No one knows. That can't be true. It is. The keepers sealed it away before history began. Why? Because if it were ever forgotten, she looked toward the Hollow One. Everything else would follow. Ethan frowned. That doesn't make sense. The keeper slowly turned toward him. Imagine removing the first stone from an arch. The rest eventually falls. Naomi lifted her camera. For the first time since entering the Relic Cast, the camera worked. She photographed the doorway. The image developed instantly. When she looked at it, the doorway wasn't there. Instead, the photograph showed 7 empty graves, each marked with one of their names: Maya Torres, Ethan Brooks, Naomi Chen, Isaiah Walker, Priya Patel, Soren Erickson, Capple Bickerpoint. At the bottom of the photograph, words slowly appeared. Not today. Naomi quietly folded the photograph and slipped it into her jacket. She decided not to tell the others. Not yet. The chains around the great doorway suddenly rattled. Not because they were breaking, because something behind them had moved. One slow knock echoed from the other side, then another, then a third. Each strike vibrated through the village like the tolling of an enormous bell. The Hollow One whispered, It's awake. Capple looked toward the keeper. What is? The keeper answered without looking away from the door. Hope. Nobody understood, least of all the Hollow One. It laughed, a harsh, layered sound made from 1,000 stolen voices. Hope? You chained hope behind a door. The keeper finally faced it. No, we protected it. The Hollow One's smile vanished. Across the village, every lantern suddenly burned brighter. The blue lantern carried by the keeper, the green lantern held by Evelyn, even the gas lamps lining the streets. Only one remained dark, a rusted lantern hanging above the cemetery gate. The keeper noticed, So, it has begun. Capple's pocket watch started ticking again. Tick, tick, tick. Only now the hands moved backward. He opened the cover. New words appeared. To remember the future, one must first understand the past. The page beneath the glass shifted. A map appeared. Not of Cliff, not of the Relic Cast, of Northgale Estate. Specifically, the attic. A small red circle glowed over a location hidden behind the eastern chimney wall. Capple looked up. The house, the attic, there's something hidden there. The keeper nodded. I know. Then why haven't you gone? The keeper's expression became impossibly solemn, because keepers cannot leave. Miles away, Northgale Estate groaned. Jenny and Larry remained trapped inside. Not physically, emotionally. The house had begun changing. Portraits they had unpacked no longer matched their family. Wedding photographs showed strangers. Capple's baby pictures displayed another little boy. The family Bible listed different names in the genealogy. Jenny frantically searched her phone. Every photograph of Capple still existed. Yet in each one, his face looked slightly different. Not enough for anyone else to notice. Enough for a mother to know. Larry whispered, It's rewriting us. Suddenly, 3 knocks echoed through the house. Not at the front door, not at the garage. From inside the walls, knock, knock, knock. Jenny froze. Larry grabbed a fireplace poker. The knocking continued, moving, traveling through the house, upstairs, across the ceiling, down another wall, until it stopped directly behind the bookcase in the library. Larry slowly pulled the shelves aside. Hidden behind them, a narrow oak door. Neither of them had seen it before. Carved into the wood was the familiar raven holding a key. Beneath it, one sentence: "When the children remember, the parents must believe." Back within the Relic Cast, the Hollow One began walking toward the enormous chained doorway. No one stopped it, not even the keeper. Capple looked confused. "Aren't you going to stop him?" "I cannot." "Why not?" "The prison rejects force. It only responds to truth." The Hollow One reached the first chain, placed one hand upon the black iron. Smoke rose instantly. The creature hissed. Its borrowed skin cracked. Capple's face peeled away like old paint. Beneath it, nothing human remained. The children gasped. There was no true face, only shifting emptiness, a silhouette trying desperately to become someone. Every few seconds it borrowed another expression: an old woman, a little boy, a soldier, a fisherman, a bride, a king. None lasted longer than a heartbeat. The creature possessed no identity of its own, only fragments stolen from others. "It hurts." The Hollow One whispered. For the first time, its voice contained only one voice, its own. Small, lonely, ancient. "It always hurts." Capple unexpectedly stepped forward. Maya grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" He couldn't explain it. He simply knew. He looked directly at the creature. "You don't remember." The Hollow One looked up. Capple continued. "You don't remember who you were." The creature trembled. "No." "You don't remember your name." "No." "You don't remember why you started stealing everyone else's." The Hollow One collapsed to its knees. The chains around the great doorway glowed brighter. The keeper quietly whispered, "Yes." The creature clutched its head. "I can't, I was." Every stolen face flashed rapidly, hundreds, thousands, millions. Then all disappeared, leaving only the empty silhouette. Capple slowly approached. "Maybe you weren't born when someone was forgotten." The Hollow One looked at him. "Maybe you were the one who was forgotten." The world fell silent. Every lantern extinguished. Every bell stopped. Even the ocean beyond the cliffs became still. The words hung in the air like destiny. The Hollow One stared at Capple, not with hatred, not with rage, with impossible confusion. Then a single tear fell from where its eye should have been. The tear struck the cobblestones. Instead of water, it became a tiny silver leaf, a memory. The first memory the creature had ever created. The remembering tree erupted in radiant light. Every silver leaf burst into brilliance. The colossal stone doorway began opening on its own, not because it had been forced, because for the first time in centuries, the truth had been spoken aloud. From beyond the opening came neither darkness nor monsters, only warm golden light, and a single familiar voice, one so old that even the keeper slowly knelt. "My children," the voice said gently, "come home." The keeper closed its eyes. Tears slipped from beneath the porcelain mask. "It cannot be." Evelyn whispered, "The first memory remembers us." The golden light poured through the opening like the first sunrise the world had ever known. It did not blind. It warmed. It did not burn. It healed. Every cobblestone in the Relic Cast glowed softly beneath its touch. The crooked buildings straightened. The church bell tower stood upright for the first time in centuries. Gray roses blooming in forgotten window boxes slowly turned crimson once more. For the first time since the village of Relic had vanished from history, time moved forward. Not backward, not in circles, forward. The keeper remained on one knee. Every villager followed. No one had been commanded. No one needed to be. They simply remembered what reverence felt like. Capple looked into the doorway. He expected to see a throne, a king, an angel, something magnificent. Instead, he saw an ordinary woman. She appeared no older than 50. Her silver hair rested gently upon her shoulders. She wore simple traveling clothes rather than royal robes. Around her neck hung a wooden pendant carved into the shape of a cedar leaf. Her eyes held something Capple had never seen before, not power, recognition. As though she knew every person who had ever existed, she smiled, and every villager smiled back. The keeper spoke first. Its many voices became one. Mother. The woman gently shook her head. No, I was never your mother. I was simply the first one, who refused to forget. Capple stepped closer. Who are you? The woman looked toward him with quiet affection. I have had many names. They have all been forgotten. So now I am simply called the first memory. The hollow one remained kneeling before the great doorway. Its shifting form had merely stopped changing. For the first time, it resembled no one, only itself, a quiet figure made of gray light. It looked smaller, almost like a frightened child. The first memory approached it. No anger crossed her face, no judgment, only compassion. You've been lonely. The creature trembled. So very lonely. The children watched in silence. The hollow one had terrified them. It had stolen faces, voices, families. It had almost claimed Capple. Yet seeing it now, they realized something profound. Monsters were not always born from hatred. Sometimes they were born from abandonment. The first memory knelt before the hollow one. What was your name? The creature shook. I can't. She smiled gently. Then let us remember it together. She placed one hand upon its forehead. The entire Relic Cast shook. Not violently, joyfully. The remembering tree released millions of silver leaves into the air. They swirled around the village like a great living snowfall. Each leaf carried a memory. Each memory carried a name. The leaves circled the hollow one faster and faster. Children laughed. Old friends embraced. Parents held infants once more. The village remembered. One silver leaf landed upon Capple's shoulder. Inside it, he saw a little boy standing alone beside the original cemetery. He was perhaps 8 years old. He had no family, no home. No one knew his name. Winter came. The village struggled to survive. One terrible storm separated the child from everyone else. When spring arrived, no one remembered he had ever existed. No grave had been marked. No record had been written. No parent searched. No teacher called attendance. He had slipped quietly from every memory. Except one. The cemetery remembered. Alone. For centuries. Without a single soul left to speak his name. His loneliness became hunger. His hunger became emptiness. His emptiness became the hollow one. Capple's eyes filled with tears. It wasn't evil. The keeper answered softly. No, it became what forgetting made it. The first memory smiled at the frightened figure before her. Then she whispered one word, a name. No one else heard it, not because it was secret, because it belonged only to him. The hollow one gasped. Its body of gray light burst into thousands of brilliant fragments. The darkness peeled away. Standing in its place was an ordinary little boy, the same child from Capple's vision, freckles across his nose, threadbare coat, bare feet. He looked around in astonishment. I remember. The village erupted in tears, not from sorrow, from relief. 3 centuries of grief broke like a storm, finally passing. The chains around the great doorway dissolved into silver mist. The cemetery beyond the village transformed. Every weathered gravestone gained a name. Flowers bloomed where only moss had grown. The ocean beyond the cliffs reflected a sunrise no one had seen in hundreds of years. Even the sky changed. For the first time in the history of the Relic Cast, blue. The keeper slowly removed its porcelain mask. The countless faces flowing beneath it began separating, one by one. Every keeper who had ever carried the keys stepped free. An old sailor, a schoolteacher, a lighthouse keeper, a physician, a carpenter, a child, even Elias Bickerpoint. He smiled warmly at Capple. You found what I could not. Capple's voice trembled. You were my family. Elias nodded. And now you may finally return to yours. He handed Capple the silver pocket watch. Its hands now pointed to 6, exactly sunrise. The watch no longer counts time. It measures remembrance. The first memory turned toward the 7 children, the circle of 7. You were never chosen because you were the strongest. You were chosen because none of you tried to solve this alone. She looked at Maya, leadership, at Ethan, curiosity, at Naomi, observation, at Isaiah, wisdom, at Priya, compassion, at Soren, faith, finally at Capple, and you, forgiveness. Capple blinked. I didn't do anything. She smiled. You forgave someone who frightened you. Few heroes ever manage that. The keeper extended the ancient ring of 13 keys. One by one, the keys dissolved into silver light. Returning to the roots of the remembering tree, only one remained, the 13th key, the smooth one, the key without a symbol. The keeper placed it into Capple's hands. You understand now. Capple looked down. It doesn't lock doors. No, it closes stories. He walked slowly toward the great doorway. Behind him stood the village. Ahead lay Northgale Estate. Between them, the threshold. Capple looked back one final time. The little boy who had once been the hollow one waved happily. The villagers smiled. Evelyn nodded. The keeper bowed. Capple gently placed the 13th key into the ancient lock. It turned effortlessly. The doorway slowly closed, not with violence, with peace. As the stone met stone, every soul inside the Relic Cast was bathed in warm golden light, not erased, not destroyed, remembered. Completely. The threshold vanished. The third stall became exactly what it had always appeared to be, an ordinary garage, nothing more, nothing less. Jenny and Larry rushed forward as the children stumbled out into the cool morning air. Jenny wrapped Capple in the fiercest embrace of his life. Larry hugged him so tightly he could barely breathe. Neither parent asked a single question. They already knew the only answer that mattered. Their son had come home. 6 months later, autumn returned to Cliff on the coast. The rain was still frequent. The fog still rolled over the cliffs each morning. The lighthouse still watched the harbor. Some things should never change. Northgale Estate remained one of the most beautiful homes on the island, but it was no longer listed as a relic estate. County records quietly reclassified it as historic coastal residence. No explanation accompanied the change. The third garage stall stored bicycles, fishing poles, holiday decorations, and Larry's ever-growing collection of woodworking tools. Its black door eventually faded to the same weathered brown as the others. No one who visited would have guessed it had once held a doorway between worlds. Kids' Corner continued meeting after school in the Cliff BTC cafeteria. Only now there were 7 chairs instead of 6. They still solved mysteries, missing pets, odd lights at the harbor, a strangely musical scarecrow, a lighthouse lens that seemed to shine on cloudless nights. But every now and then, when the rain stopped unexpectedly, the 7 friends would look toward Northgale Hill, not because they feared it, because they smiled. They knew some mysteries deserved answers, others deserved respect, and a very few deserved both. Years later, visitors occasionally asked the oldest residents of Cliff a curious question. Why is your cemetery so unusually well maintained? The elders would simply smile, because everyone deserves to be remembered. No one ever understood why they always placed a single fresh flower on one small gravestone near the oldest cedar tree. The stone bore only 4 words. The boy remembered home. No dates, no surname, just those words. And every spring, without fail, a single white raven feather would appear upon that grave. No one ever saw the bird that left it. No one ever tried to explain it. Some stories are meant to frighten us. Others remind us why we tell stories in the first place, because every story is an act of remembrance. Every name spoken with love keeps someone alive a little longer. Every family photograph, every shared meal, every laugh, every goodbye, every "I remember" whispered across generations pushes back the darkness of forgetting. And perhaps that is the oldest magic of all. Not portals, not haunted houses, not ancient keys, but the simple, extraordinary decision to remember one another. Consider sharing this episode with a friend who appreciates a good mystery.